faithful to Christianity in Malacca because, he said, because, look, we went there in 1820s and all the Christians, these Portuguese Christians in Malacca, they were all just basically pagans. They didn't have the real rights or anything. Well, that made Francois very angry. So he said, no, it's not true. Anyway, the Dutch were to blame for that, as we all know. So that's what that argument was about. Now, Father Cardone comes in, and he says, oh, this guy here, well, fun, he doesn't know what he's talking about, and he gets even worse. Now he starts personally attacking Yahweh Fun. He says, you know, you are, what did he say? He says, you are Mr. Fun, he calls him. You are turning a historical debate into a hateful religious quarrel. And so on and so on. And then Yahweh Fun replies to him, he says, no, you are turning it into a hateful religious quarrel. I just want to talk about the school, and you want to talk about religion, and so on and so on. All right. Now, mind you, who was Yahweh Fun? Yahweh Fun was educated in Chinese and English in the city of Fuzhou. He's from Fuzhou. He's from an old Christian family in Fuzhou. They're Anglicans. His father and his grandfather were Anglicans, preachers and deacons in China. They're a very prominent Chinese Christian family. He graduated from Fujian Christian University in Fuzhou, right? He married another woman right here in Malacca. He married a woman who's from another great family like that. These are great Christian families, and he has scholarship, and he's a historian. And now he says, I want to talk about the history of that. I don't want to talk about religion. He says, no, you got a Protestant view. We have a Catholic view. So it got really, really nasty. And anyway, before it was over. But I think Yahweh Fun proved his point. In the meantime, there's just lots of fireworks. Okay, now, here comes the main deal. And that, we're almost out of time. And the main deal is going to be at the Wonkong and what it meant in 1933. With all this in our minds, this background. So we don't have to go into the details of the events. It's all in the book. We all know what happened. This is the Cho-Cho picture that's on Joe's wall. And there are just a couple things that I want to mention. Of course, we're all familiar with the Wonkong Festival, right? So, but it started with the spirit medium in Kanda hearing from the Ongans that they're going to make an inspection tour. And then the 5 temples, the temples of the 5 Ongans get together and they form the procession all the way to November. And then finally in November they have the procession, right? And the boat goes around and the Taoist priests do all their stuff. You probably saw them last year doing this in January. And then they burn the boat. So that's the fundamental thing. But all during the year, the Malacca Guardian is following all the events that happen. And there are lots of interesting disputes, like who gets to be Chilans, and who gets to watch the Chilans rehearse, and why can't we get into the shed, and all this kind of stuff is going on in the newspaper. But never mind all that, the thing happened. Now, in May, there was another ceremony. And this you can all try to help me out. This is the Cho-Cho ceremony. This means in Mandarin it's called the Zuo-Jiao Festival. A Jiao festival is exactly like a Wonkong festival in its purpose. But this is happening in the same place, in the middle of the preparation. So there's a story. We can't be sure about the story, but this is an older festival. So the way I would put together is they're still doing this, but this is run by the Changun Temple. The Wonkong festival is run by the Ongya temples. So there's actually a competition here. But it's over, because now the Wonkong is it. This festival does the same thing. They open the temple, they close the temple, they open the temple again, the priests do their rites, they put, they sail candles out to sea, and so on, and it's supposed to be a purification festival. So why do they need the Wonkong? Right. So the point is that the Wonkong originated in the 1840s in the town of Kanda. There was a little temple there. That's where it started. It came from China in the 1840s. It was a fairly new kind of festival, and it was taking off. So what they did was, when they had problems, they would have one of these things. It wasn't on a regular time schedule. But the temple was authorized by the Changun King, which was the master temple, and so they could do this. Finally, in 1891, there was a cholera outbreak. A cholera outbreak in Malacca. So the Ongya temples got together. And they formed 5 Ongyas to ask a huge, bigger kind of thing to happen. and they brought it right into Malacca. So that was the first time. It was in Malacca in 1891 because of a cholera epidemic. And the Changwon Temple then authorized it and participated. All right. So 14 years later, they did it again. There was another epidemic going on. The cattle were dying and so on. 1905, they did it again. So now it becomes a tradition. 1891, 1905, 14 years, right? Again 14 years, again 14 years. So in 1905, by then, now we have all the strange Chinese people are beginning to show up. So they're participating in this thing in floats, and they're going around and dressing up, and they're wearing thousands and thousands of dollars worth of jewelry and fancy stuff. And so in 1905, the people are coming up from Singapore and they say, oh, Sleepy Hollow, let's see it. Oh, look, that's fantastic. So they're in awe of this festival. And then they turn around and say, you know, if they're reformers and like that, they say, oh, but this is old superstition, and it's very wasteful, right? So the progressive reformers in Singapore are now looking at this as a sign of the backwardness of Malacca, because it's a waste of money and it's superstitious, right? So what was it in 1933? Over the course of this year, there was an argument about Malayanization going on. Now, I'm going to have to hurry because I've talked too long. But at the end of the year, there was a lot of discussion this year. Is again the Cho-Cho Festival, right? Here are the Chinese. You want to know? The question is, who's participating in this thing in 1933? Here are the Chinese. These are all young men from good Baba Nonya families. You think, you know, none of the new Chinese, Baba Nonya families. Now, very eager to become Chinese. To become a Chinese, you have to go to the temple, and you pray, you drop blocks on the floor, they land in a certain way, you get chosen or not. So you're chosen by the deity, by the God, right? Some people got left out, very hurt, like Kenny Chan's father. He was very sad he didn't get to be a Cheyenne, right? While Robert Seep's father did get to be one, right? So there's a sense of who's in and who's out, right? But also, those people who can't be Chinese, and they complain, why can't I be a Chinese, right? So this was an exclusive thing, but they were very excited about it. Now, during the course of the year, there were many events that happened. And so there's prayers going on, donations being made. The important thing is the donations are being made, right? And the donations are also things to pay for prayers. So there's a religious base to this, and it's going around the whole town. So here we have a picture of the town again. And so all of this part of the city very definitely is having a lot of activity. And so prayers continue to go on, donations keep being made, and people are looking for blessings from the ceremony. The final big event is a huge pageant and extravaganza. And so now we're going to think, what did people think about it? All right. First of all, now this is in December. The thing is just over. We have Dr. A.L. Hoops, who's one of our historians and this great physician. And he has this to say. He says, faith, the foundation of religion. And so what he sees in this event, I'm going to read you a bit. He says, toleration of every religion has been characteristic of the Chinese. For faith is the foundation of all religion, the common heritage of humanity. Ladies and gentlemen, he's talking to the Rotary Club, I make bold to say that every one of us, whether Rotarians or guests, are with them at heart and soul. For we recognize the Wangkang not only as a great pageant, but as an act of faith in which every one of us can take part, and that we believe it will result in many benefits to this settlement and to these countries. Right? That's a very serious statement by this guy. And he's saying this is a kind of faith. Any religion can understand this. And right, so this stuff is, the papers are full of this. Here is a moment of hope. Here is a moment of faith. Here is something deeply religious going on. Right? Right. It was also a great pageant. So what did it mean? Now, of course, this doesn't go without dispute. Somebody writes a letter in Malacca, there are people who have no faith at all. Why, look, there are people who only live to eat and die. Look at those Aborigines out there. Look at the Sema, the Sama and stuff. Now, who should answer that? Father Cardone. Father Cardone, who loves to argue, he says, you don't know anything about those people, this and that. He says, actually, they have a God and they have rules they live by, and if you're Homo sapiens, you have religion, you have faith. All right, so this becomes a big argument. And really, you don't take the other side, right? Or you're going to be atheist, you're going to be what? Communist. So everybody's referring to this stuff. Now, what did the government say? Here is Governor Clementi's message in the front here. He wrote a message in the front here to the people of Malacca. And in it he says, although this festival is essentially Chinese, it is in the historical settlement of Malacca that most progress has been made in the Malayanization of the immigrant races which have made this country their home. Therefore, the non-Chinese will, I know, cordially share in the rejoicings of their Chinese friends. I hope with all my heart that this festive occasion may increase the good fellowship and that's happily existing. Okay. So the governor sees here, well, somewhere, the governor sees this as fitting into his policy of Malayanization. What he means is people live in harmony together in this place. We're going to become a Malaya someday. We won't be British anymore. We're going to live in harmony. And here's the example. All the Malay people come out and they witness this pageant and they have the same deep religious faith and so on and so on. Well, that wasn't the end of that, you could guess. So what did Malayanization mean? Now there's another article that was written by somebody called D'Souza, G.W. D'Souza, in Singapore. And he is talking about, actually, we have to argue against these people who want to anglicize the place. He says Malay is the language of languages, lingua franca. And anyway, you know, if you teach English in the colonies, look what happens. Every place in the world, people get dissatisfied because they don't get the political power. So they get dissatisfied, and then you have revolts and revolutions and stuff like that. It's got to be Malay, it's got to be Malay. Right, that was his argument. Now, can we guess what Tan Cheng Loc's argument was? Okay. To the Rotary Club, before the end of the year, Clementi is defending his Malayanization policy against the English language newspapers. And he's saying, okay, I know people dispute this, but he says someday there will be a vernacular Malay press, and everybody will use this, and everybody will live together in harmony. And so the key thing is, and he keeps talking about the people who are the sons of the soil, and those who are the immigrants, right? The immigrant people who want to live here, and that's his policy. Tan Cheng Loc comes along and makes what they call his most brilliant speech in council. And that is the speech in which he defends English as the primary language. English should be the language. But in that speech, he also says every person should have education in their primary language first. He says, if you want to make a real Malayan, and he says, I agree with you, but if you want to make a true Malayan, he says, everyone should have primary education in the vernacular, in their language, where they can access their cultural roots, including, he says, the strange Chinese. He said, if strange Chinese get to the Cambridge level, they should study Chinese and learn what their spiritual roots are. Right. Then he said, and the government should pay for it, and should reduce the cost. And then he says, all right, if this argument doesn't make, and he quotes all kinds of authorities, and he says, if you can't do that, then you have no excuse not for educating every child in English from day one. Right. So that was his argument against the Malayanization argument. And so here is what was happening, and that was in the press. So now we're back to the conclusion here. Back to this one. Right? A lot of stuff going on here, right? So the idea that there's all harmony and everybody is blessed and so on is being mocked a little bit by Yankee Young, isn't it? And everybody wishes that there's going to be peace in the world and that, faith will bring it about. But then he says, it's really about who wins the lottery, isn't it? And so then he's saying, well, the Chinese are winning now. What about us? What about the Portuguese? What about the Malay? What about, I'm not sure what these people are. What about the Indians? What about, who's that guy? Maybe the Oromasti or something. What about that? Okay, so that becomes the end of that story. Now, one final note is here. Prosperity returned. The market turned up. By the beginning of 1934, everybody thought, you know, it's coming up, it's coming back. By the end of 1934, the price on the market had doubled. Okay? And we're enjoying prosperity again. And at the same time, Lok resigned from his position on the Legislative Council. Now that's another story. There are personal reasons for that. But somehow, you see, the two stories are right here on the same page. Very interesting. And this is from Malacca Guardian, December 1934, describing what has happened in the next year. So, that doesn't answer any questions, does it? But it wasn't supposed to. By 1937, there was a war on in China, and by 1941, the Japanese had conquered all this. Now all this became suddenly irrelevant for several years. And we had to start all over again. But there's a history, there's a heritage, there's a whole lot of people here that we didn't even know existed, but that they were very much a part of what was becoming Malacca in modern days, I think. That's it. So, carry on. Now what do we do?
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, if you have any questions for Dr. Jerry, this is your time. Otherwise, we can let him rest for a while. So, any questions from the floor? Yes.
I think one of the interesting things to point out is that we actually have somebody sitting here who saw that perception.
Oh yes, I forgot to mention. Thanks, especially to Horace, who in 1933 actually went to the Capitol Theater and did not pay 20 cents for the cheapest seat. He got a discount. He paid half price. He paid only 10 seats. 10 cents because he sat in the front row. Is that right? Anyone else here from 1933?
Do you know anything from that particular year, 1933? Ms. Audrey, any questions?
Anybody want to throw something?
Any questions?
Anybody know who Peter Chan was?
Peter Chan, back then. Back then.
I can't hear you. I can hear you before you pick up the mic. Oh, Peter Chan. We'll try. Something that, I don't know, tan, something, tech. Oh, okay. So sorry, it wasn't about ACS, and it wasn't about SFI, and it wasn't about the Capitol Dance Hall. Chanbinga. It's a man named Mandarin. I don't know. It would be tan. It would be tan. In Hokkien.
Looks like show appreciation by presenting him, courtesy of Mr. Joe, a small token of appreciation. This is from Mr. Joe.
I get to keep them. I get to keep them.
And we also like to thank all of you, especially Mr. Horace, who had made his way to the restaurant here at the top. Thank you very much for coming. Oh yes, and we do have some refreshment. The cakes are courtesy of Miss Irina, that is Bert's sister, and also Miss Celia. On the back, she brought the way and sweet Irina. And the drink is from Miss Park. It has got ginseng and chrysanthemum. So you all be strong. Okay. Alright, so thank you very much for coming. It's been a pleasure to have you here. Thank you very much. And look out for the cups for the next talk. Yeah, we have one every month for those newcomers. There's one every month, so look it up and you know where. And look up on time. Thank you.